Hi, my name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher, and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, September the 25th, and it is a beautiful sunshiny day where I am. We've had wonderful weather for the last couple of days. Tomorrow and Tuesday, the next couple of days are going to be like highs of 24, 25, which is kind of summer-like. I know there's all you people out there who are going, we want the sweater weather, bring on the fall. You know, this summer-loving individual's going, let's hang on to the last few vestiges of summer. I also acknowledge it's because I live in a location where it doesn't get to like 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which I agree is uncomfortable. Even for me, that's uncomfortable. But I like my temperature, so 24, 25, it's going to be lovely. Might be able to sneak in another Slurpee. Okay. So the sunroom today is glorious. We are having that moment where, if you've watched me for any length of time, twice a year I have moments where I go, the sun is moving on me and things are going to happen. So when I was getting all my stuff together, it was just great. I'm having that moment going, I can just tell over the course of this video the sun is going to move just far enough that I may end up being blinded by the light, but we're going to go with it anyway. Let's do a couple of things right off the get-go. Thoughts and prayers to the people of the Ukraine, as always, because there's always things going on there, as we all know, and we watch the coverage. Unfortunately, there are lots of things happening in the world, as there always are. So thinking about certainly the people in Nova Scotia and Cape Breton who are suffering from the after effects of Fiona. Down in the Caribbean, of course, people are getting ready for Hurricane Ian to come along. I have to admit I didn't hear an update on that this morning because I probably wasn't listening for it. You know, bracing for impact. And I was listening to some of the coverage on Fiona. Was watching the CEO of the power company down in Halifax saying, don't go outside. You know, and he said, you know, a lot of people assume that if a power line is down, that it is not energized, which is not necessarily the case. And those power lines when they're down are incredibly dangerous to people, pets, etc. Very, very dangerous. And he was like going, don't go anywhere near them, because you may think if you're, you know, say if you assume that just because you're not going to touch it, you're not going to get it affected by it, is not accurate. So in my head, as I was listening to him, you know, explain these things and really cautioning people, saying, please don't go outside, please don't go outside, please don't go anywhere near down power lines. We're working, you know, as best we can. I was like, in my head, you know, I was going, safety first, safety first, safety first. You know, and again, this is something that, you know, sort of working in the energy sector for practically my whole career. Safety is drilled in. You have to do safety things all the time. You know, even as an office worker. So, you know, clearly the guys that are out at, you know, working on rigs or at gas plants or power generators, all that kind of stuff, those guys are like, there's an incredible amount of safety hammered into them. Sorry. I'm having a moment, but I have my beverage. Can't start recording a Flosstube without having a beverage because something might happen. Okay, I think we're better. If not. Anyway, but even as an office worker, I actually had to go to quarterly safety meetings. And, you know, was it tailored for safety in the workplace? Yes. So, you know, it was still safety in the workplace, and, you know, the surprising things that are unsafe, you know, even in an office environment. Anyway, so I'm used to going to safety meetings. So safety first, safety first, safety first. So thinking about all of those people, and again, a lot of global events going on that have me thinking about lot of different people around the world, and the unfortunate situations that they're experiencing, and having that moment again of gratitude, going, I lead a privileged life. It was interesting. I was thinking about a cousin of mine who had been commenting about, you know, I acknowledge I lead a very privileged life. You know, he's not in like the 1%ers or anything like that, but he's like, I am a white male in North America from a family that is stable and financially stable, economically stable, from a mental health perspective, stable. And he said, all of those things contribute. I am an incredibly privileged person in this day and age. And I had that one going, like, I too am incredibly privileged. I live in a country that is very safe. I am allowed as a woman to receive an education. I am allowed to work in the occupation of my choice. There's still some discrimination against women, and fair pay is still an issue. But, you know, I think back to one of my aunts. So my undergrad degree, I have a Bachelor of Commerce. She got her Bachelor of Commerce in the 60s. I'm trying to think. I should know the year. 1962, I think she got hers. Anyway, and she applied for articling positions with auditing firms, just like the rest of her classmates. And she was only ever offered secretarial work. She was never allowed the opportunity to take a job as an articling student with an accounting firm, which was what her education was in. And so she went back to university, got her teaching degree, and taught math for the rest of her career. So again, I acknowledge I lead a privileged life. So thinking about a lot of people around the world these days. All right, let's talk about, okay, comments from last week. So thank you so much for the comments last week. They were great. I've got all these notes on, you should see the level of notes we've got this week. So I'm just trying to make sure I've got them organized. Okay, I got a comment from Denise, who had went out and purchased one of the 10-year planners that I got. It came with a traveling companion of a sticker book. She was very pleased with it. So Denise, I'm thrilled that you're thrilled. It will be interesting to watch our journey as we go through the next 10 years and how we use these planners. And I laughed when she said, my husband does not understand my excitement about this 10-year planner. And I just went, husbands, yep. There's a lot about our crafting that the husbands don't necessarily understand, and understand our level of excitement, the highs, the lows, the joys, the distress that come along with our crafting. But don't you worry, Denise, there is a community of stitchers who like their planners that will be with you about excitement. So don't forget, there are people standing with you in your excitement. It's to the point, I have a big pen here because I have to knock these things off when I've done them. Okay. Shar, thank you for your comment on last week's video. It was a little short on the facts that I felt I needed. I hope you're laughing at this point. So you said that your fabric arrived from dyeing for cross stitch, which is great. You didn't tell me what you get. So 2 weeks ago you were talking about the Cabernet, so I'm feeling like the fabric was Cabernet, but you didn't say whether it was dark, medium, or light. You also didn't tell me whether it had a traveling companion. So let us know, because we're all dying to, okay, me and several of my friends are dying, to know which ones you got. We all like to talk about them. yesterday on the Saturday was our get together at the library, and it was great. So the fabrics that I had shown 2 weeks ago, I brought all of those, so including the ones that I got for myself, the ones that my friend had loaned me, because that's how she was going to get the handoff back. And you know, it's always nice to see the fabrics live and in person, and so it was always interesting hearing the commentary from people about what they like, what they don't like. And it was interesting because there was one of the people there was just like, I like all the Cabernets. I like the dark, I like the medium, I like the light. So anyway, so yes, we're all interested. Did you add friends? Were they interesting? Are they fabrics we need to know about? Anyway, so feel free to comment again. Okay, Stephanie, this is our last one. So she's, last week was I was like, please make sure that you do it one more time, just so that we can make sure that you've got your pocket mags printing and that you've got access to your pocket mags. Because as we all know, I've got a number of magazines in my pocket mags library. So she has now reported back that she is successful, which is excellent. Excellent. Let's we'll work the problem until we get solutions. I will say the solution to our problem wasn't anything that I suggested, but anyway, that doesn't matter. She's now got it solved, which is the most important part. So that's great. She also commented that she has now added to her stash the French Country Crown by JBW Designs. It's a lovely design. There have been a couple of you that have commented that you have added that into your stash. And again, pros and cons about watching Flosstube. Particularly if you watch Flosstubers who stitch things that you enjoy. I think I've commented before that I am trying to add to the people who I enjoy listening to them and hearing what they're talking about, but are working on things that I don't necessarily, the style doesn't speak to me. Why? Because it means I probably don't add to stash quite as often. The problem when you watch Flosstubers that work on a lot of stuff you like is that your wish list can grow. Anyway, pros and cons. I'm always up for being shown something that might have to get added to my wish list, and you're going to see that in my stash acquisitions this week. Okay. Linda, who is in England, just had a comment about, having watched the funeral. And, it's interesting. A number of you have commented about, your plans for watching the funeral and stitching while you're watching the funeral, and, other royal events that you've gotten up in the middle of the night to watch. Because, of course, if you're in North America, there's a distinct time zone difference. And certainly between London, England, and California, that's a doozy. But she's commenting about, she was watching me, after, because she's in London, England, a day of profound sadness. And so I didn't watch it live. I think when I was getting ready to watch, I had that moment going like, the versions that I had, like, I think one of them was 9 hours and one of them was 11 hours. And I went, I don't know that I've got 11 hours to do this. I'm not sure I've got 9 hours. Now, of course, included in that was, a lot of prep work. There was, of course, live coverage of the hearse going from London to Windsor for the committal service, and which I will admit I didn't feel like I needed to watch the car journey, so I sort of sped through some of that. And we'll talk a little bit more about what happened while I was watching the funeral when we get into my stitching. But she made a comment. She said, I hope you had a moment of pride watching the Mounties in the procession to the Wellington. I wanted to call it the Wellington Arch. Is it the Wellington Arch? The Wellington Gate? It's the Wellington thingy. Anyway, and it was interesting because my reaction was like, so I wouldn't say that I had a moment of pride, because when you made the comment, here's my answer. Of course we would be represented. Of course it would have been. the commentary for me, if there had been no Canadian representation in that big march, that would be different. I don't know that I was proud about that moment, because my answer is like, of course we were there. Of course we were there. Of course. I think in the stats that I've heard that of all the Commonwealth countries, Canada is the one that Queen Elizabeth visited the most during her reign as monarch. I will acknowledge we're one of the closest. So it's a little bit of an easier journey to get here than it is to, Australia's, just that much further away. It's a bigger travel trek to get there. But yeah, certainly the Queen and Prince Philip visited here a lot of times. Jeanette Douglas had the opportunity to sing before the Queen. She's was part of a choir here, and she had the opportunity to sing "God Save the Queen" to the Queen in person. I don't have that experience anyway, so it's a great memory for her. Anyway, so yes, I'm glad there were Mounties, because of course we were represented. Of course Canada would have to show up for the funeral. Anyway, so yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the comments around okay. So Lynn was the one that I had, she'd asked if I would be willing to show the back of my projects, and I'd asked her a couple of questions. So one, thank you so much for coming back. I had those moments going like, I hope people don't take it, the wrong way. But thank you for commenting again and explaining what you were looking for, because I think your questions are great. So here's, she was really wanting to look at the back of my pieces, because, she has that debate. She's seen the conversations about what your back should or should not look like. How much time should she put into the backs of her projects? And I've boiled it down to I think you've got a couple of questions. How far am I willing to travel? And how do I travel? Which you may think, like, what do you mean, how do you travel? It's obvious. It's not necessarily as obvious as you think. And I think those are great questions. Great questions. And so next week's topic is going to be that. I'm going to talk about how I decide how far I'm willing to travel, because of course it depends. It depends on a wide variety of factors, and how I travel also depends. So we're going to talk about that next week. We're going to talk about how I travel. So I think that's great, right? And maybe a lot of people out there have that same question. Some people will go, I don't care, I travel how I travel and I'm good to go, and that's totally fine. That just means when we get to the topic, you can go, I'm done with that video, on to the next one. But that's why I asked the question, because I think those are your real questions, and I'd love to talk about it, and we'll talk about it next week. So thank you so much for that. She's working on full coverage pieces. And again, how you travel on a full coverage piece can be different than how you travel on not full coverage pieces. Anyway, those are great questions. Great questions. So thank you so much for coming back and adding in that comment on last week's video, because we're going to talk about that next week. I know it gives you a week to stitch without the talking, but I'm sure you'll be fine. Okay, let's talk about, one more thing about the backsides. Linda also made a comment. There's an English teacher, Jane Greenhoff, her comment is, who was always enraged by the people who wanted to look at her backside. I thought that was funny. I will say, same way, I'm anti-bullying. I am anti-backside shaming. Now, I do have a story where I think I've told the story before, where I was at a class, and I saw one of the ladies sitting at my table, her the backside of her work, and I will say I was quite taken aback to the point where in my head I went, you cannot possibly go, because that's what I was doing in my head. I had to work really hard to go keep your face neutral. There's no back shaming here. I had to admit I had never seen a backside of a stitching project like hers. If she was wanting it framed, I think she was going to be giving her framer a bit of a challenge. Let me just say that. But part of my thing is you never know what somebody's stitching journey is and why their backside may look the way it is, which is why no backside shaming ever. If it's somebody new, there's nothing more discouraging to showing a group of people your work and being really proud of what you've accomplished and having somebody turn it over and go, oh, look at this. Ugh, this is terrible. I've actually seen that in person. It's utterly inappropriate. You should never do that. You know, she was new to stitching. She was really proud of her work. There's nothing more discouraging that will turn people off of being involved in a craft that I love by that type of shaming. It was, anyway. I had a few things to say at that point. Anyway, you never know, you know, if somebody stitched something as they're recovering from, here are examples I know. If someone's recovering from a stroke, they were a stitcher before, they're recovering from a stroke, they're trying to do their stitching. You know what? Their stitching right now may not be the way the backside looked before because they're having struggles. And I would rather that they be involved in stitching. And as long as the front was turning out okay, the struggles that they were experiencing as they were recovering from the effects of a stroke, you know what? No back shaming. Not in person, not online, not on Facebook, not on Instagram, no back shaming. Have I made myself clear on this topic? Because if you do it in front of me, I might have a few things to say as well. Anywho, no back shaming. I'm really a nice person until you come after people. Anyway. Okay, really, we'll move on. Okay. Okay, chatelaines. Lots of comments on the chatelaine. Thank you so much for the really nice comments that you said about my Egypt. Yeah, I love my Egypt. I love my Egypt. Love my Egypt. So let me get my traveling stocking stitcher, and I will also say this to me. I am terrible about the names because I know I know the Flosstube channels. Traveling stocking stitcher. I'm having a moment. I should have looked it up before I came on here, but anyway, I will work on remembering what your first name actually is. But in my head, I actually do call you the traveling stocking stitcher. Anyway, she left me a comment which I really appreciated. She started with a small one. I want to say it's the mini mandala mystery number 3, because she wanted to do it as a proof of concept. And in my head, when I read that comment, I was like, yes, good for you. Do a small one. See how you like it. I love a good proof of concept when it comes to stitching. So that was, yes, loved it. I'm just going to go through these randomly because apparently I'm not doing a good job. Carol had commented that she has only recently heard of chatelaine designs. And again, that's one of the benefits to Flosstube, is that you can have exposure to things that don't necessarily that you wouldn't necessarily know otherwise. And I love that about Flosstube. I have these moments going like, you haven't heard of, anyway, right? Hey, everybody does things differently, so I'm really glad that this channel has been an opportunity for you to get exposure to them. That's great. I think they're fantastic designs, which makes me want to go immediately to the one from, oh, Carol also said she thought it would be a great one if she had traveled to Egypt. And I will say part of the appeal for me of the Egypt one is because I have been to Egypt. So if you ever have the opportunity to go to Egypt, it's a fantastic trip. It's fantastic. I remember standing in at Karnak and looking at these massive columns that had decorative painting. Now, not all of it is still there, but I remember looking up at this one beam across the top, a set of columns where the painting is intact, and standing there and going, someone painted that 4,500 years ago, and I'm standing here looking at their work. Which I think even to them, if they, like, I think it would have been incomprehensible to say 4,500 years from now, there will be some woman standing there going, looking at what you painted. Anyway, if you have the chance to go to Egypt, it's fascinating. I loved my trip to Egypt. Katie was the one that I wanted to go to next. She said, I love the charts and I'm never going to do one, which is totally, like, that's a great answer too. Chatelaine designs are not for everyone. What I like about stitching is that within the stitching designing arena, there is something for everyone. It may not be to everybody's taste. That's not the point. It's just like your favorite color. My favorite color is blue. Your favorite color could be pink. It doesn't mean I'm wrong and you're right, or you're right and I'm wrong. It's okay to have a different favorite color. It's okay to have different things, different designs and charts and styles and all of that appeal to you. I also look at it, and I appreciate the fact that you love looking at them. I think of that in terms of music going. I have a lot of training in music. I can appreciate music. Not all music styles appeal to me, and I'm going to pick on opera because my dad loves opera. I'm not a fan of opera, but I can listen to a piece of opera and appreciate the training and the technique and the work and the range, and because I have enough training to go, I know what it takes to create that musical experience, and I can appreciate it for what it is. It may not be the one where I go, if only I could listen to another opera. That's not so me. You know, again, I appreciate the people go like, I love the charts. I love looking at them. Never gonna do it, which is totally fine, right? It's budgets, right? Everybody has a budget. Someone will look at the cost of a chatelaine and go, but I could get 4, 5, 6, 7, depending on what your price point is. I could get anywhere from 4 to 7 project bags for the price of a chatelaine kit. And they go, in my budget, I may still spend the same amount of money, but I'm choosing to spend it on project bags or fabric or charts or silk threads for something else or whatever. Everybody's got a budget. Everybody's budget is different, and how you choose to do that budget, it's also your time. I say again, chatelaines are complicated charts. They're complicated. And some people go like, I do this for relaxation. I do this as stress relief. The last thing I want to do is come down, sit down a chart and go, man, I'm going to have to work at this to figure it out and get it in. That doesn't sound like any fun to me. And that's totally fine, because there's lots within the stitching world that will do that for you. And that's great. But thank you for saying, I'm never going to do one. I love looking at them, but I'm never going to do one. Okay. Again, comments from the stitching get together. You know, someone there said, like, I actually really appreciate that you said these are expensive. These are expensive. It was interesting because they also said, however, when you think that like a chatelaine design, to actually stitch the design can take you anywhere, certainly on like the large ones, not the mini ones, not the small ones, but if you're working on one of those larger mandala designs, you know, actually stitching that from start to finish may take you anywhere from 9 to 12 months of stitching time to get that thing stitched up. So when you look at your costs, you know, let's pretend it's 12 months going. If you worked monogamously on one of the big ones that's really complicated, it could take you a year to get that done. A year's worth of stitching for the price of a kit? You know, again, it's just another way to look at it. And one of the ladies in the library group, she's just waiting for the ECC sale. She's got the money set aside. She's waiting. Now, she didn't say when she was planning on starting it. She's waiting for the sale, and then she's going to get her kit. So it'll be great to see her journey whenever that starts. No start pressure. Start when you want. You know, it's your project. You do what you want. Lala also made a comment that she's got a December birthday. Her chatelaine is going to be her birthday start. And again, she has spent the year working away at gathering the supplies, and it's taken her, the year. Again, kudos to you for, working away at it and gathering them all so that you can have this great start. It's going to be a great journey. Like other ones going, great, you're going to start in December. Which one? Which one? So Lala, if you want to, please share. As well, are you on social media at all? Not everybody is, because if you're posting, I want to make sure I get to follow the journey. Okay. We're getting close. Rachel Q. Yes, maybe you should do this all with us. You've got another comment about something else, and we'll get to that in just a second. Okay, that's enough discussion about all the comments and questions and topics, and at least you know what the topic, let's do this so it doesn't roll off. I was going to say 2 weeks from now, not 2 weeks from now, next week's topic. Let's get into some stitching, because I've got, oh, that's not true. I've got one more announcement. If you are in the Greater Calgary area, Friday, October 14th, Saturday, October 15th at the Marda Loop Community Association. There is a bags, babies and beyond sale. So bags, scarves, shawls, cowls, hats, mitts, socks, home decor, kitchen accessories, seasonal items, jewelry, and gifts. This is from Ujamagrammas, which is a charitable organization which does great things. Love this. So I'm just going to, oh, it's going to glare. I'm really sorry. I'll put the details down below, because now we've also got, shadow of weird things going on. If you're in the area, make a stop. I'm planning on making a stop. Okay, now let's get into some stitching. Okay, so last week, not surprisingly, yeah, see, here it comes. It's going to be in the worst. Anyway, Sunday night, I was working on my sampler of stitches by the Drawn Thread, which is a series of 9 charts. We are coming down to the end of it, and my goal for last week was to do all of the letter U. Which, by the way, would finish chart number 7 of 9. And Rachel, there's another one of your comments. I'm laughing that you two heard me say 7 of 9 and immediately thought of Star Trek. So that would finish off the 7th of the 9 charts. Here is a little bit of a closer look at what that U should be. The stitches are upright cross, upright rice stitch, underline stitch, and the up and down buttonhole. Just having that moment going, where is my board for this one? And I think I put something on it, so let's use this. That'll be fine. Okay, so there is my letter U, all stitched up. I'm just distracted by the fuzz on my scroll rod. With my charm attached. Again, I attached this with invisible thread. That's just generally my preference. Again, what it allowed me to do is it allowed me to do a loop over the lower part of the umbrella handle, which again means that this isn't going to be moving around on me. So there it is. There's my up and down buttonhole is at the bottom there. So that is now complete. Two more charts. I am on track with my SAL. First one I'm actively participating in. I feel like I'm doing really well on this one. It's coming along. yeah, I'm really pleased with how that's looking. So tonight I will be moving over and I will be starting the next chart. I just realized I forgot something. Doesn't matter. You'll see it next week. So I will start working on the next chart, which is VWX, which is going to look like this. So I am expecting that this is going to take me 2 Sunday evenings. I will say that this was a lot of stitching. Now I will also say, let's not kid ourselves, because it took forever and a day for last week's video to get uploaded. By the way, kudos to those of you who made it through the well over a movie length of a video from last week. I'm sure some of you got in there and looked and went, I'm sorry, how long? Don't forget, you can watch it in multiple steps. It's all good. Anyway, this, for a small band, this is a ton of stitching. A lot. Anyway, so for any of you that are working on the sampler of stitches, do not underestimate this little band here. You work through S and T, you're like, whew, we're all the way through, just a little bit down. Yeah, there's a lot of stitching in there. Anyway, so now I will move on to V. Like I say, I'm expecting that this is going to take the full 2 Sundays of stitching. So my goal is sort of to get all of this plus half of this done, which means the following week I can do the other half of this plus that. So these are some big stitches here. Anyway, it's coming along. I'm making good progress. Which brings me to Monday, September the 19th, which was the day of the funeral. I know I had talked and I said I was planning on stitching while I was watching the funeral. I am here to happily report to you that while I was watching the funeral, I got in exactly, wait for it, 0 stitches. None. I got none in while I was watching the funeral. Want to know why? Because I was watching the funeral. I laughed. There was someone at the stitching get together who she watched the funeral. She got 700 stitches in. Anywho, that was not me. I got exactly none while I was watching the funeral because I was watching the funeral, which I'm okay with that outcome as well. It did not move my goals for what I wanted to accomplish. It just moved when they got finished. So I had 2 goals. So the first one, of course, was to work on my new start in commemoration of the passing of Queen Elizabeth, which, wait for it, I finally remembered to print one out. This isn't the one that I was planning on printing, but it's totally fine. So this is from Vivsters on Etsy. So this is what it's going to look like. And my goal was to stitch this part of the cipher here. And I've got funny stories about this. Sorry, there's a bit of fluff. So I got it stitched. So I did it in, so the called for fiber for this is DMC Light Effects E3821, which I did not use. So I am using Rainbow Gallery Petite Treasure Braid PB03. And I'm just going to say this one more time. And I made that conversion because I use the metallic conversion chart from Fabi Riley. I will put a link to that down below. I have that downloaded onto my computer as part of the conversion list that I keep. Because I find it very helpful, because I wasn't going to use E3821. I still wanted all the metallic. So there it is. So I got that cipher done. Started in, effectively, this is a center start on this piece. My plan is to work my way up. I know last week I talked about I have to decide whether I'm really going to do this as the coronation crown or the imperial state crown. I'm going to make it the imperial state crown. So it's going to change a little bit. The design is pretty good. And again, because I know stitching is not, a lot of people go, I shouldn't have to haul out the chart and then go do a bunch of research. This is me, because I've been very clear. If anybody can overthink a pattern, you're looking at her. That's me. And I'm really good at it. So I was going in and looking at that. And again, based on this design, so I don't know that I'm necessarily planning on the design, but when I go in and look at the design and the gemstones she's got, I went, the aim was really the imperial state crown. So I'm going to make this the imperial state crown. So stay tuned for that. This piece is going to go away for a while because this is going to be part of my Queen Elizabeth stitching plan, which is going to occur one day a month on the 6th of every month. And we'll talk about why the 6th when we get to the next piece. So this actually, I stitched on this. I did stitch on it on Monday night. I got 266 stitches in on Monday night. So yeah, Cheryl, you beat me by, you know, a boatload. It's not a competition. And I had to work on it on Tuesday night as well, and put in another 220 stitches to get this cipher done. The other funny thing about this one is when I started to stitch with the Rainbow Gallery, I fought with it and fought with it. It's like I had never stitched with metallic in my life. Had a little fight with it. And Petite Treasure braid is my... Anyway, I was using the wrong needle size. As soon as I fixed my needle size, I'm stitching this on a 32 count antique white Lugana. I used a size 24 needle to stitch this. As soon as I changed my needle size to the 24, we were away to the races. Everything was good. No problem. I fought and fought and I went, what is wrong with you? And then I looked at my needle and went, oh, right, wrong one. You would think I would know by now, but I don't. Anyway, changed my needle. We were all good. All good. I think it looks great. So yeah, there is my start to my commemorative piece for the passing of Queen Elizabeth. One of them, sort of. The start of the, anyway. So there's that one. I really should have done a better job about how I lay out my tables over here. We need to work on this. Okay. So the second piece that I worked on is my French Country Crown by JBW Designs. This was going to be my commemorative piece for the Platinum Jubilee, which I think is also turning into a memorial piece. So I am stitching this on a 28 count navy Lugana. I am stitching it entirely in beads. I am using Mill Hill Petite Beads 42010, details in the notes below. My goal for this, for my funeral stitching, I'm calling it the funeral stitching because I didn't get it done while I was watching the funeral. The funeral stitching was to get the words "to the Queen" stitched. And I was successful at that as well. So there is the "to the Queen." Note to self, I need to move my recording time up to about noon. Maybe we can get out of this shadow thing until the, anyway, it'll shift till we're fully into winter, but whatever. So there it is, all the to the Queen got in. So next time this comes out, it's still only going to come out on the 6th of every month. So the next time this comes out, my goal is to get the bottom of the crown finished and then start working on, so below this is, it's going to say Elizabeth II, and then I've still got to do the charting to get the, I have to decide if I'm actually just going to do 1926 to 2022, or if I'm actually going to do April 21st, 1920, April 20, yeah, I think it's the 21st, April 21st, 1926 to September the 9th. So I haven't decided if it's just going to be years. I think it's probably just going to be the years. Check back later. I change my mind about every second day about what that's going to be. It's okay, because I've got the bottom of the crown and Elizabeth to do. Now, what I had been doing on this was sort of saying, like, because the goal originally was to have it accomplished by February 6th, 2023, which would be the end of her Jubilee year. She decided she'd jubileed enough. So my new goal is that I want this to be completed in 2022. This has to be a finish in 2022. So previously I figured out, sort of, because I've got this in Markup RXP, I would calculate where I needed to be in terms of a percentage to make sure that I was on track for accomplishing the original goal. The new goal is it has to be finished. So instead of sort of working on it until you reach the goal, setting it aside and working on something else, my expectation is that, so on October the 6th, I'm probably only going to work on this and see how much I can get done. Getting it done this year is totally doable. Certainly with a full day's worth of stitching, you know, whenever the 6th is, will contribute to getting that done. So I'm not worried about getting the new goal accomplished. I think it's quite doable. Once this is finished, I will revert back and then continue on with my stitching on the 6th of every month and work on my my Vivster's chart. And again, I will work on it one day a month until it's complete, because that also gives me time behind the scenes to fiddle and fudge with colors and beads and 27 other things, because, you know, overthinking everything and, you know, whatever. You got to go with the skills that you've got, and overthinking is a skill. Okay. Sorry, I'm just juggling all the things. So then after that, I worked on Anne Morison. Anne Morison came back out to play. So I had a bit of a goal for Anne Morison, and the reason why it came out right after I did my funeral stitching is because I'm really trying to get my goal accomplished. And I was successful, more or less. So Anne Morison came out, and so what I finished off is I finished off the letter F, the letter G, and completed this light blue border down here. As you can see, I have not made a final decision on what to do about this border here. So still working on that in behind the scenes, trying to figure out what I'm doing. So I'm happy with that. You know, for a September goal, I think I got my goal. I'm happy with that. I don't know that it's going to come out again in September. I think it's going to come out again because I really think I do need to make a dent on the eyelet letters. And I've forgotten your name, the one who's like, please do the eyelets, please do the eyelets. You'll love it at the end. Hey, I will start with the eyelets. I don't promise to do all of them as eyelets, but I certainly am going to start with the eyelets. So we'll see how it goes. Part of the reason is I've got to make sure I drag all those. So in the Facebook group for Anne Morison, somebody's husband who's logical and all that kind of stuff figured out the map for how to do the eyelets, because you sort of do like an outer part of the eyelet, and as you work your way around, you do the rest of it and everything, so you can sort of work your way around the whole kit and caboodle of eyelets. So I downloaded those out of the Facebook group. And they're sitting on my computer, so I just need to get them onto my iPad so that when I'm actually stitching in my stitching spot, I can look at those diagrams and work on them. So while I'm uploading all of this stuff, that will be part of it. So, but anyway, so I'm happy with where I got to on that. So that was great. And then I moved on to ink circles, bee's knees. So this is a carryover whip. I started this in 2021. This was my August new start for 2021. Made a little bit of a dent in that thing. So I brought this out because this will be the first time this has made it out of the whip pile and onto like actual stitching in the current year. Did I make a huge amount of progress? No. Why? Because I prioritized my goals. The sun is behind the tree now. I prioritized my goals. So I got my sampler stitches stitching done. I got my funeral stitching goals accomplished. I got my September and Morison goal accomplished. One of the goals for September was also to work on this. So it came out, which is great. Am I getting as much work on it as I was expecting to get done on this? No, because the funeral stitching was more important, which again, you know my hard plans, and anyway, they change. So I am doing this on a 32 count Lilac Lugana, using the called for threads, which is a Valdani silk. It's called Orchids, the number, because Valdani uses the oddest numbering system. The number is S as in Sam 1. So here's where we are. So when I brought this out to stitch on it, all I had was like, so 1, 2, 3, 4 parts of this. Again, this is a mandala-like thing. I do have, so I know that there are people out there who they sort of mark where the top is and they actually mark it on the top of the fabric. I don't do that because on these larger pieces, I do them on scroll rods. And if I've got it marked at the top, when I pick it up randomly, I'm not going to know which way is up. So I tend to literally stitch an arrow on the fabric with my arrow going this way. Because usually because it's in the center, it will usually get you to the point where it's like, okay, I know where I'm at. Now, this is a typical example because this is a mandala. I start in the bottom when I'm doing something new, so a new motif. Because I'll do this one, and then I'll do this one, and then I'll do this one, and then I'll do that one, because I want to make sure that I sort of figure out my path, and then I'm doing quite well on this one. I'm happy with it, but I like to do the bottom one first and then do the top one. And I do it this way because when you stitch this one, you're stitching down. And what I will do when I go to stitch this one is I will completely flip it over. Your stitches will still be going in the same direction and replicate that. So that's why I do it that way. So I'm really pleased with how it's coming along. I'm probably going to work on this a little bit more because I just want to get this motif finished. I did put 434 stitches into this so far. I was hoping to work on this a little bit more last Saturday night and maybe hopefully get really close to finishing this off. But yeah, so my goal is to make sure that this gets finished. So a little dent at that. So I'm at about 27% of this design has been stitched. So I've got a long way to go on this, but I like it. It needs to come out more. But yeah, so there's my bee's knees ink circles. And then, just a reminder, see, I've got these 4 parts and then I have this whole border left to do. Anyway, I've got a lot of stitching left to go. It's okay. And then Saturday, because we were having the meetup at the library, I have decided that I'm going to have a project that I only stitch when we do these library get-togethers. So they're going to be probably certainly something that fits on a Q-snap because I don't want to have to deal with like bringing the scroll rods and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be a Q-snap one so I can use my Velky Petite. And so the one that I'm working on right now is my StitchCon piece, because again, this started as I was going to say, I'll stitch it whenever, and it's like, no, I need to stitch it in 2022. So this is also on my plans that this needs to get finished in the year 2022, the year that I went to StitchCon for the first time. So some of you who are watching, who are there, are getting ready to laugh because they saw how much I stitched while I was there, which was not much. Not much. I had a frustrating experience stitching on this while I was at the library. So when I came home, I said, so you still need to work on this because you need to finish what you were supposed to have gotten accomplished while you were at the library and were unsuccessful because you were chitty-chatting and 27 other things. So my goal originally was that I wanted to sort of get this this needlework frame and Keepsakes Cincinnati stitch. That was sort of like, you know, this month's project. Anyway, I came home and stitched. I didn't get all of that goal accomplished, which is okay. So I came home and I finished the needlework scroll. So the bird, blah, 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 you know, did my own initials, not surprisingly. The interesting thing about this chart is the, if your initials happen to be S and H, which is charted in the main chart, she uses 2 different colors of green for the S and the H. But when you go to the alphabet on the back of the chart, for those of us whose initials are not S or H, they're all monochromatic. Anyway, just a little cover. So I did mine monochromatic. I wasn't going to bother fussing trying to figure out how to get it into a 2-toned, you know, ombre effect. I was like, I don't care that much. So I was totally fine with the monochromatic. I will say this R is a little bit adjusted from what she has on the back of the chart. I did stitch her version, and when I stood away from it, I went, that looks like a B, which didn't work for me. So what I did is I just took out one of the stitches here. So I'm happier with it now. I started on the K. This is going to fall into our travel discussions. And anyway, I clearly did not get the word Keepsakes in there or Cincinnati. It's totally fine. This is a ridiculous amount of stitching. So in that scroll frame, there are 440 stitches, not including the back stitching, because I don't count back stitching. Because if Markup RxP doesn't count it, I don't count it, even though I stitch it. So 440 stitches plus the back stitching. And again, when I work on this, I do a motif and I do the back stitching right then and there. Because I will say this is another one. If I had waited until the end to do the back stitching, that would be very depressing. Now, they're individual separate motifs. They're not contiguous to anything. So it's just as efficient to sit there and go stitch it and do the back stitching. But we're there. So I feel like I'm on track to get this accomplished in 2022. I've got 3 months left to go this year. And always, worst case scenario, in December, I can shove something else aside and finish this up. But I think I'm on track to get this done. Because I've got a little bit, actually, so I did this, plus I did some of the green over here in the house. So what I've got left to stitch is Keepsakes Cincinnati. I need to do the Stitchy bus, because I need to download that picture from the Facebook group, because I'm going to make it look more like the Stitchy bus. And the house. So I feel like not bad. I started this in July. So, you know, again, I sort of had my July start to make sure I had a good start, and then everything that you've seen since then has effectively been accomplished through what I call library stitching. Anyway, so dear library people, you're going to see that next time too. And so that's the stitching that I worked on this week. Some of you are sitting there and going, wait a minute, where's the chatelaine? Yeah, the chatelaine didn't come out this week. The chatelaine, or this past week, the chatelaine is coming out again next week. So my goals for next week are to work on my drawn thread sampler stitches, and then I'm going to do chatelaine. So I'm going to do, my goal is to put another 1,000 stitches into my polar mandala, and then hopefully before the end of September, I will have reached that 1,000 stitches into the chatelaine, and then I'm going to do a reward. And then Saturday, if I have my dates, yeah, Saturday is the 1st of October, which means October goals kick in. Some of you already know what that means. Actually, that's one of the comments that I forgot to talk about. Where is it? I wrote it down. Anyway, there it is. Mandy made a comment about it's like getting teased. Now, that valid suggestion. Hey, you could, to give yourself the break, you could just bump up a couple of your projects from 2023, which is, I think, is hilarious. I think that's great that you go like, surely you've got something you could bump up from 2023 and take yourself out of the your tedious cottages, which is totally a good comment. Now, for me, my answer is I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm not going to bump it up. Why? Because I want to finish these this year. I want to finish the whole series this year. And even if when I bring out October and November and December cottages, I go, I'm kind of annoyed with you and I'm done. Can't wait for this to be done. I love them at the end. I love them at the end, and I will be really glad at the end of this year when I say I did all 12 cottages. So again, for me, that's a goal. Hey, goal could be firm, could be fluid. My goal is to actually get them all done, and I will be happy at the end of this year. So thanks for the suggestion, because it's totally valid. And I do have that comment, like sometimes the right solution is to give yourself the break, because you will enjoy it when you come back to it. I think it's better for me, and it's a little bit of a training program for me to just finish the series off. So I'm going to stick with it. Don't forget, when you see me when I'm working on my October cottage and my November cottage and my December cottage, you'll just know there might be going like, I'm kind of annoyed with the cottage. There's also the possibility where I could come out and go like, I'm really surprised I really enjoyed this cottage. Who knows what's going to happen over the next 3 cottages, but I'm going to stick with my plan so that I can get the whole series accomplished this year. Which now means I'm really afraid that I forgot other things on my things, which I did. The stocking stitcher, she had suggested for the Teresa Gill, like if I could work at sort of adjusting the face given the many mirabilias that I have in my stash, mirabilias Nora Corbett's, that I could maybe adjust the face and fix it. And the answer is I can't. Dear stocking stitcher, you're really great at adjusting your patterns, and I'm good at adjusting my patterns generally in terms of color and a couple of small things. I was like, I'm not good at faces. So that doesn't work for me, which reminds me of Rachel Q. You made a comment saying like you were okay with the face on the Teresa Gill one, because then if you were somewhat off, you would feel like you weren't disfiguring the queen, which I went, valid point. Anyway, so I enjoyed those comments as well. Thank you for all the comments. All right, that is my stitching for this week. So touched a lot of projects, which, was positive. Again, we'll see how the rest of the stitching between now and the end of September goes. I'd actually like to work a little bit more on my ink circles, but I've got to get another 1,000 stitches into my I'm pointing at it because it's sitting over here. I've got to get another 1,000 stitches into my polar mandala. So drawn thread, polar manda, 1,000 stitches. Now, depending on how fast or short that amount of time is anybody's guess. Once those 2 goals are accomplished, all bets are off. Who knows what I'm going to work on for the rest of the time that I have until we hit October 1st on Saturday. All right, let's do winners. Winners! This is the week I announce the winners for my giveaways, because I've got notes on that. Okay. So the first giveaway is the set of 6 charts for the Marbeck Nativity. There was someone who commented somewhere over the last couple of videos who commented, I'm really surprised you're willing to give those up. And the answer is I'm totally willing to give these up. Why? Because I am never stitching this again. I am never stitching this again. This is always also a series of charts where there aren't any motifs in it where I think, that might be valuable. I could see me using that to do X, Y, or Z. I'm never stitching these again. I'm never stitching these again, so I'm more than happy. I've seen somewhere like the charts may be getting harder to get. And I thought there was a comment somewhere like maybe they were actually turning them into PDFs. I don't know. I'm more than happy to give away this set. So I used the random YouTube comment picker to pick this, and I will insert a picture of that comment here, but I will tell you that the winner is Carol Turner, and she actually used the word never ending when she was putting it into a sentence, which was great. Somebody comments like, I'm really surprised the word was nativity and not never ending. And the answer is I used the word nativity because never ending, you have bigger chances of spelling errors. And whether it's never ending all one word or never ending 2 words or with a hyphen. So it was nativity so that people could spell it correctly. And when I used the random comment generator, it would actually, we didn't struggle. I will say that there were a total of 3 of you who were interested in it. And Carol, you are the winner. Carol, my email is in the comment section, in the note section down below. So if you could just send me an email with your mailing address, I will get this out to you. Congratulations, Carol. You've got a set of 6 charts coming your way. The second drawing was for this Ink Circles Woodland Vines, along with this Leslie Tier, I'm calling it a Christmas design, Christmas Robin. I'm calling it, it says Christmas Robin, yeah. The combination of these 2, and the winner of this one is Char J57. Congratulations, Char. If you can send me, I know I've got your email address because you emailed me all the help with the Never Ending Nativity, but you are the winner of the Woodland set. If you can send me your mailing address, I will get that out to you as well. In addition, Carol and Char, can you also let me know in your email if you're interested in any of these floss drops? And if so, how many you would like? I've got lots to send you. If you're interested, put that in your email as well, and I can throw those in. So congratulations, Carol and Char. You're the winners of the giveaways from 2 weeks ago. Okay. Let's talk about Stitchy Kindness. I got some Stitchy Kindness this week. I also forgot to ask if I could use her name, so I won't use her name just yet. At the library stitching get together, I was the recipient. I'm just going to pull it out of its bag of the chart for this design. This is a Mill Hill kit called Strawberries. I'm going to hold it up close so that you can see the number. Strawberries. She gifted me the chart, the cover page, and what was left of the beads from this. So she stitched this. Why did she give it to me? Because while she was stitching at the library, I feel like I stared at her the whole time and went, it looks so great. It looks so great. And she very graciously, once she finished it, sent me an email and said, would you be interested in the chart? And I was like, yes, please, yes, please. Anyway, this is great. So she stitched it on the perforated paper. I'm not going to stitch it on the perforated paper. I am going to stitch it on navy blue Lugana. Because why? Because it's going to save me all of this back color here. It'll save me that stitching, which is going to be great. And she, of course, used the bee button on hers because it was her kit. I'm probably not going to get the Mill Hill button for this. I'm probably going to get a just a little gold bee charm from Jupiter Charms for mine. So this is getting added into the 2023 stitching plan. It in person, it is it's lovely. Yeah. Which I think she could tell because of how much I hope I didn't creep her out by how much I was watching her stitch it, because I was just like, it looks fantastic. So thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can't wait to start working on this at some point in 2023. Okay, that's the Stitchy Kindness. Then we're going to go on to haul. We're going to do some of the easy stuff first. Last week, the weeks are all rolling in together. Whatever week that I was showing those loner fabrics from my friend from Dying for Cross Stitch, and I said there was that Barnwood Light, which I kind of went, it might be a brownie color fabric, taupey color fabric that I might be okay with for this particular design. So I had to do a floss toss before I gave the fabric back. So I pulled the floss out for that particular design, did the floss toss. I think it's going to be great. So at some point here, we'll order again from Dying for Cross Stitch, and Barnwood Light's going to come to me for that. But while I was pulling the floss, I didn't have all of it. I was missing some. So I did a quick run to Michael's. My Michael's has been restocked. And through that kitting up process, I noted a couple of gaps in my stash of DMCs. So I went to Michael's and picked up, about 20 skeins of floss. So I'm not going to show them individually. It's DMC floss. Just to finish kitting something up and fill in a couple of holes. I was ordering something from Amazon and had noted I've got a number of things sort of, saved for later in my cart, but they give you those notifications when things change. So this had gone down in price by about 40%. And certainly when I looked at sort of the other sulky thread packs that were in my Amazon saved for later, they were all at that higher price. So this one was on sale. So I snapped that up and added that to what I was getting from Amazon. This is called, I think this is called their, I don't know if it's officially called that. Oh yeah, it is. It's called their Rosewood Manor collection. I haven't opened it to, anyway, so it's called their Rosewood Manor collection. We all know I like a good Rosewood Manor chart. So that's what they look like. They're just solids. While it was on sale, I picked it up. Okay. So I had previously purchased this chart from Helen Phillips on Etsy. This was her Platinum Jubilee. It's a little pin cushion. Cheryl from Happy Handcraft Studios has done this. I've seen it in person. It was lovely. And then I got a notification that she's now stitched a memorial piece. This is a little bigger than this one. Whoops. But again, so this is in the $3 Canadian range, and I just went, I'm spending the $3 and I'm gonna get it. One of these days. So my queen stitching might go on for a bit, because I think, so I'll work on the Vivsters is my next one, and then I'll probably work on these ones, and then I still think I need to do the cipher that Mama Loves You GB did. So my queen stitching could go on for years based on the rate we're going. So don't be surprised in 2025 when I'm still talking about my Queen Elizabeth stitching. Anyway, so I picked up this chart. I will put a link to this chart in her Etsy shop in case any of you are interested in that. So I added that into the stash. So then I placed an order with 123 Stitch for something very specific, which is we'll see next. But while I was there, I added just a couple of Soie D'Algers while I was there because I've been working on something. It's like, man, I need those. So I couple of colors of Soie D'Alger for some stuff, and then this was the reason why I ordered. And this is entirely the Kindred Stitcher's fault. Lisa, I've been working on that one. It's true. If you've got a YouTube channel and you came up with a really good crafty name like the Traveling Stocking Stitcher, I tend to call you by your YouTube channel name as opposed to like your live and in-person name. So if any of you run into me and you go, hey, City Stitcher, I'm totally fine with that because I do that myself. This is the Kindred Stitcher's fault because she did this and I loved what she did. I had seen these charts before. I'd seen other people stitch them. I had a couple of the series in my stash. But I kind of looked at them and I looked what people were doing with them and went, not all of them. So I had a couple of them. And then Kindred Stitcher did something with them and I went, I love that. And then I decided I needed them. It's been added into the plan. It's been added into the plan. Some of you may have already guessed by now. So what it is it is the Blackbird Designs Garden Club series of charts. So this is a series of 12 charts. I just went, if I'm putting it into the plan, I'm just going to get the charts. I'm going to get all 12 of them. They can live together happily. So I got them. I have not bought the threads for this. I haven't, like, aside from getting the charts, that's as far as I've gone on this. Aside from on Instagram, Kindred Stitcher did a couple of really good Instagram posts because, you know, she showed her thing and everybody loved it. And she was very, very gracious and kind and shared her, how her placement of these, because she didn't place these in order. She's got her own specific order, and some of the charts, like number 7, right? These two are not stitched together. They're placed differently. So she graciously shared her whole plan about where all of these charts belonged and how many spaces she left in between them. Like, she shared all of that on Instagram. So Lisa, thank you so much, because your version is the one that pushed me over the edge and went, now I have to stitch it. So these have been added to the collection. These are in the plan. These are in the 5-year plan. So these will be coming up in the 5 years. So not next year, but in the 5 years. So this was my 1, 2, 3 order. I got the rest of the charts that I didn't have. I won't show them individually. It's the Blackbird Designs Garden Club series. Yes, so that was great. I'm now glad that I have all of these in my stash because I want to do it just like Kindred Stitcher, just like it. Okay, might change a couple of colors. Probably change the fabric color, but as I say, I don't consider those changes. Those are standard Judy, chart adjustments. Anyway, so those are my stash acquisitions for this week. So we are now getting into the topic, which is, let's talk my Excel workbook. I know, doesn't that actually... said that now that I've said out loud, going, no, people on YouTube may be looking for Excel things. I'm gonna have to change that. So when you look at it, it will have a different title. It's about how I'm using my Excel workbook for my planning. So when I was talking about my planning for my 5-year planning, somebody said, I kind of want to know what you're doing in your Excel workbook. So this is the week I'm going to tell you about what's in my Excel workbook. If I can find my big page of notes. Hang on a minute. The big page of notes is critical to the success for this portion of the program. There we go. Okay, found it. Okay. Really worried about things falling off. Okay, so if you are not into planning and you're, I stitch what I want when I want, and all of you people who need 10-year planners and blah, blah, blah planners, and it's not for you, that's great. Thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me, as always. Comments, questions, suggestions for topics, always welcome to have the conversation in the comment section down below. We'll see you in another video. For those of you who get excited about planning, whether or not you regularly plan or you intermittently plan or whatever you do, so I have my version of planning, but I always love hearing what other people are doing, because you just never know when somebody comes up with something and you go, ooh, how do I do that? We'll talk about that. So I love watching other people's planning videos. I don't necessarily, go, oh, because so-and-so plans like this, that's what I'm going to do. But you just never know when you're going to find a new idea or something that's going to help you plan, tips, tricks, whatever. And I am a planner by nature. So I did say that I wasn't necessarily going to show you my Excel workbook itself, but I will walk you through what I've got, because it is an Excel workbook. I do it in Excel because it gives me the flexibility that I can move, delete, change, color code. I can color code something and then color code it something else and then color code it for the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7th time, depending on what's happening. Move, add, delete, all with ease. And I don't necessarily, I'm not generally printing, for most of it, I'm not printing anything out. I just have it sitting on my computer. One of the things about doing a Flosstube channel and doing a video every week is that I'm usually sitting at my computer every week for sure. Well, thinking about stitchy things, which gives me a great opportunity to look at my Excel spreadsheet. So the first tab that I have sitting in my stitching plan workbook is the current plan. So it's the current plan. It's got the 5-year plan on there. Secretly, it goes more than 5 years, because I come up with these ideas and I go like, oh, I need to do that. And then I look at my plan, and in my next 5 years, there's no room for it, but I don't want to lose the thought. So mine actually goes for more years than 5, so I can just throw things in there as they occur to me. So it starts with the current plan, so starts with 2022, and it's got the months, and there's the months with an extra line for Lent, because I do Lent stitching, and for my Lent stitching I also put in the dates for Lent, so I know when Lent starts and when Lent ends, because it impacts things, because Lent moves. Sometimes Lent starts early, sometimes Lent starts in February, sometimes Lent starts in March, and it changes how I look at my stitching for particularly my March-April stitching, whether it's taking all of a month, part of a month. It adjusts how I think about so I know how I'm thinking about that, March-April stitching effectively. Then I've got a column, the next column next to that, for 2022, the next column to that is a column for my sampler of stitches. And what I've got noted in there is just sort of where I'm supposed to be by the end of the month. I also ended up on a printed out calendar, just sort of writing the letters down. So I have one upstairs on the computer, and I have one that lives down here that has that. So it's just sort of so I could keep track. And again, right, if I have my Excel workbook open while I'm doing, Flosstube things, while I'm doing the Flosstube things, I know where I ended up on my sampler of stitches, and I can just have that quick check in my workbook saying, am I on track? And I'm on track. I think I'm doing well with my sampler stitches, which is great. Next to that, the column again for this year is my monthly chart, which again you would think is pretty easy. Duh, you're doing the January, February, you know. But I have it noted that my plan is to do the January cottage one each month in the month that, you know, do January in January. Then the column next to that is what I've called it the primary chart. And really the primary chart is sort of like whether or not I'm expecting to do a new start that month. So January, there's always for me, there's always a new start. I like a new year, new start. I love that concept. You know, and so I have scheduled out, if you go back when I talked about how I do planning, it's like I'm generally planning for a new start every month. Sometimes there's more than one, not necessarily, but there's the primary one where I go like, that's the one if I'm starting a new chart, that's the one that I'm starting. Next to that is a column called secondary. Aren't these the best labels ever? Secondary. It could be a new start. It could, in some months, it's like specifically a whip that was supposed to be worked on. So, you know, one of the whips that was supposed to be worked on in August did not get worked on. Ink circles. So that's a case where, you know, it was supposed to be worked on, it didn't get worked on, it's now being adjusted. It's got worked on in September, so, you know, it's living a life, but it's sort of, there's a concept of, sometimes it's a new start. In January for this year, if I was successful and I got my cottage done, and I'm having a moment going, there was something else, if I got that accomplished, then I was going to have a new start, and it was going to be Shamrock Row. And I accomplished my goals, so Shamrock Row got started, but that was sitting in my secondary column. I color code, so as we're going through the year, in the current plan, I'm color coding things. So I color code it green if it got started and it got finished. So I'm doing really well on my column of the monthly charts, because they're, so far I've been successful all year. All 9 of them have been accomplished in the month that they were supposed to be completed. So those are all green. My sampler of stitches, the letters, you know, where I'm supposed to be by the end of every month, those are green. I'm a little bit ahead of schedule on sampler stitches. It's totally fine. So those are green. There are blue, green if it's started and completed. Blue is if it was successfully started but it is carrying on as a whip. Red is if it was a planned start and it didn't happen. So I will tell you that so far in 2022, there were 2 projects that I had fully kitted up and was expecting to start that have not been started at all. At all. So they're red. Plans change. I'm still totally fine with my plan, but they are sitting there in my 2022 calendar as red because they're kitted and have not been started. And quite frankly, at this point in the year, I can tell you right now, they are not going to get started in 2022 at all. So currently in my calendar, they're sitting as red. Only the current year in the current plan gets color coded. So 2023, 2024, 2025 doesn't generally get coded, doesn't get color coded. What happens, particularly for 2023, because we're really coming up to, I really need to figure out 2023. 2023, if I go for sure, that's going to be in the plan for 2023. Those turn from just regular, they turn into italics. Just so I can go like, I can look at my 2023 and go italics, 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 not italics. So that one's still a little bit iffy, could change, could be adjusted. I italicize them when I go like I'm firm on my plan. So that's what's sitting in tab number 1. And they're sort of like that. Anyway, that's the concept of what's sitting in the plan. Tab number 2 is, the tab is called, so tab number 1, the tab name in the workbook is called current. Tab number 2 is called previous. And so what that's got in there, it's got my plan for 2021. When I get to the end of 2022, I'm just going to roll 20. It's going to come out of current. It's just going to be a straight cut and paste it into the tab below, so that every time I come into current, we're in the current year. Previous is what was in the plan. And I will say it is sometimes fun looking back at the previous one going, oh yeah, look at that plan. Anyway, sometimes I'm like going, wow, look at all those whips that are still whips. So the color coding carries over, it stays in that next tab, so I'll be able to see things there. So for example, now that I've completed Frida's, from Frida's Fancy Stitching, the banquet, I was looking at it while I was making the notes for this thing. I actually need to go back and I need to adjust the color coding for that one, because I'm trying to decide if, part of it is I need to decide what to do, because for my 2022 Frida's the banquet was one of the goals of things to accomplish. So I'm trying to decide, do I leave 2021 intact and leave it as a blue carry forward whip, which now as I'm talking about this out loud, I'm going, yes, I think in 2021, I'm still going to leave that as blue, because it really is my, what did I do that year? And I started it, it ended the year as a whip, but in my plan for 2022, that's where Frida's Fancy, the banquet, is going to turn into a green, because it's now complete. Okay, thanks for helping me out on that one. I think that's my decision. But I was like going, what do I do about the color coding when I carry them over? It's totally fine for 2021, which is the only year in the previous, because I know where I ended up. But anyway, so tab 2 is previous plans, and it'll be fun. I'm just planning on cutting it out of current, adding it onto the bottom, and keep going. Tab number 3 is options. And really, it's just a random list of things that these are things that had been sitting in the plan, and I've now fully taken out of the plan. They're not sitting anywhere in any of the years that are sitting in the current, under that current tab. A while ago, when I was talking about planning again, I had said to you that like there was one year I entirely wiped out a year so I could move things forward, because it was fine, but the following 2 years I was much more excited about, so I kind of wiped a year out and moved everything forward. And that's what I did. I wiped it out and moved everything forward. And so a lot of those projects are now sitting on the options, because I was excited about building them into the plan, but then when I adjusted the plan didn't have room for them. So I have those ones. And again, when I'm looking at things like 2023 is really starting to get pretty much italicized. 2024, that's one where I could look at something that I've got planned in 24 and going, do I really want to do that? I would probably, my next step is to go to my options page and go, what's something that I've completely booted out of the plan while I was adjusting that went, maybe I'll get excited about it again, and maybe we do a switcheroo on that. So it's things that were sitting in the plan that completely, I just went like, they got completely removed. I was excited about them at one point, but they totally got bumped from the list of contention. Like they're not sitting anywhere in the next 5 years. They're sitting on the options plan, on the options tab. Tab number 4 right now is actually entitled 2026, because I have a concept for 2026 that I'm really excited about. I can't wait for 2026 to try out this concept. I am fascinated to see how it works out, because it's going to be a plan that bears no resemblance to any of the prior year's plans. So I can't wait to see how it goes. I can't wait to see how it goes. I can't wait to see how it works out for me, whether I think it's successful or not or whatever. But as part of that, because it's so completely different, I have a tab just to help me do some of my 2026 thought process. And it's really about my thought process around how I'm going to work that. And again, it's just as ideas come to me and what I'm doing and how I'm going to order things. And again, because it's in Excel, I think I've reordered things on that page. Like we're on like round 5 of what they look like. Anyway, and again, for me, that's the beauty of Excel, is I can adjust, roll forward, not lose anything, move everything around. The tab after that is called 2023 Prep. We're getting to it. 2023 is coming fast and furiously, faster than anybody expects. And that's where I'm really tracking how am I doing on my kitting. And so I take for anything that I've got from the current plan for 2023 that is a new start, it gets rolled forward onto this tab by title. And generally I've got January, here's what I think I'm starting, February, here's what I think I'm starting, March, here's what I think I'm starting. Then I'm really, because I'm saying you need to work on kitting these up. You need to be working on that now. And so for each of those projects is a line. And then the next column next to that is the heading for it is pattern, because there's a number of status checks for the patterns. So believe it or not, so status number 1 is whether or not I've actually purchased it. I have charts that I am planning on working on in 2023 that as of this moment in time, I have not yet purchased. And some of you are going, hang on, wait a minute. We just got through stash acquisitions. Yes, I know. I've already purchased the charts for, this is part of 2027. Sorry, you bought the charts for 2027. You have not bought the charts for 2023. The answer is yes. That is correct. Anyway, my mind works in mysterious ways. Anyway, so on there it says, like, step number 1 is it purchased? Because there are some on there where the status is not purchased. It's actually called unpurchased. The next category, so once it's purchased, I change that to say it's purchased. It means it's sitting in my stash somewhere. It's still got a ways to go from there. If it is not an electronic pattern, the next category that it needs to move to is that it's been scanned. And what I'm trying to get to, now that I'm trying to do a lot in Markup RXP, is that before we hit the beginning of 2023, my goal is to have all of my 2023 expected new starts be, if they're a physical chart, because I've got older charts that are part of that plan, that I want them all to be scanned in and ready to be loaded into Markup RXP. And so the next category, so unpurchased, purchased, scanned. And then after that, I don't move them all scanned. Then I move them into that they're actually sitting in my Dropbox account ready to do things with. And then I don't bring them all into Markup RXP until I'm ready to work on them. So for example, the cottages of the month, I don't have... all of the cottages are scanned, like the remaining 3 cottages have all been scanned. They're all sitting in my Dropbox account ready to be loaded into Markup RXP, but I am not preloading them into Markup RXP until we get closer. So we're now at the point where I'm pretty sure, like this last couple of days, I finally went into Markup RXP and deleted September. It's September. I've stitched the pattern. I'm fine deleting that from the app because it's completely stitched. It was sitting at 100%. That was great. Loaded in October. The October cottage has been loaded into Markup RXP. It's been set up. It's ready to go. All I have to, as soon as October 1 comes, it's ready to go. So that's sort of the categories. So the goal by December 31st is that for the charts that they will all be purchased, they will all be scanned, they will all be sitting in Dropbox, ready to be loaded into Markup RXP. The only ones that need to be loaded into Markup Arcs P for January 1 will be the January new starts. So, so that's that. So one column, those are the options of how it's going to look. And again, I color code. If any of the people that I worked with, they would not be surprised about my color coding, because I color coding, I'm a big fan of color coding, left, right, and center, because it lets you visualize things. People who worked for me always laughed, because when we were sort of arranging who was working on what on larger projects, everybody got assigned a color. I actually usually asked them what they wanted, and then we used the color that they had chosen. But we could do these charts where you can see, it sort of lets you visualize where things are. The color coding lets me, green says it's ready to go. I'm at as far as down the path on that category as it needs to be. Red, like unpurchased charts, they're sitting there as red, going, excuse me, honey, you need to hurry up and get your kit and caboodle into order on this thing, because it's unpurchased. So I color code, and certainly we are in the back, I'm calling it the back quarter. I know we're not technically at October 1. I'm calling it we're in the back quarter. I need to, like, we need to start moving some of those color codings along. So that's patterns. The next column to that is threads. What I'm doing is, why am I doing an Excel for those ones? Is because it also means that as I'm kitting things up, you know, so the goal is to have things like you've got all the threads complete. That's a nice green. But if I'm kitting something up and I'm going, you are missing these specific threads, Excel also allows me to get to the point where I can just dump things and go, okay, here's all the threads you're missing. Just figure out how you're going to get them and be done with it. Things, you know, some of the things that make that harder, it sounds really simple. Just put them in, come up with your shopping list and go to town and order your threads. Sure, sounds easy, but it's me. So there are things like you've got all the threads, except for things where I'm making decisions. So my Lent piece for next year has yellow in it. Sorry, I forgot to pre-warn you that you might need to be sitting down. My Lent piece for next year has yellow in it. It actually calls for 6 shades of yellow. I've got all of the threads for my Lent project, except for those 6 shades of yellow. Why? Because I really just need to haul out a couple of versions of it. And you know, I don't have a large stash of yellow threads in my stash because I'm not a yellow fan. So I really need to take my project bag to the store. It's going to be DMC, so I really just need to take my project bag to the store and haul out a couple of versions of, with a color card, you'd think it would be easy for me. It's not. I still need to look at a full skein of it, put it next to the other ones, and make my decision. So that's an example where the note in the threads column is 6 yellow threads. Right, so I don't have them. I haven't made a decision. Like again, as I was making my notes for this topic, I looked at it and went, oh yeah. I looked just like, yeah, you really need to, go figure out your 6 yellow threads so you can change that to complete and it's ready to go. So that's where I'm sort of making comments where it's like, you need to fix your yellow, you need to decide your yellows, or you need to fix this. Some of them are ones where, I've got comments where it's like, I need to make a decision between whether I'm going to use the hand-dyed overs or whether I'm going to use DMC equivalents. And really it's ones where it's like, you need to spend the time looking at the chart and sort of going like, how much of that is really in there? Is it used in a big block where you'd actually be able to see the variegation? Or is it used randomly in you know, sets of 8 stitches, which is usually when I go, I'm not spending my, even if I have it in stash, where I go like, I'm not using the valuable overdyed cottons, you know, for 8 random stitches. But I need to spend the time looking at the chart going, okay, make the decision. So that's sort of where I'm keeping track of where I'm at on my threads. Again, if, you know, thinking back to last year, like it got to the point where it's like, you need this and this for this project, this and this for this project, this and this, which meant I just sort of cut that column out, moved it to a new tab, sorted it, right? Sorted it because it will, I put it in there where, whether it's a Gast or a Classic Color Works or a Weeks Dye Works or a Soie d'Alger or a DMC or, right? Because then I can just sort across all of my projects and get it in, and then it makes a much nicer shopping list. And then you can also see where, like, is it duplicates, is it not duplicates, for the, you know, because then you can decide, do I need 2 skeins of that? Do I need 1 skein of that? What's going on here? And then the column next to that is fabric. And so it's got things in there, like my goal is to make sure that worst case scenario is that I start the year with my expected new starts with the fabric sitting in the bag. I don't necessarily feel at the beginning of the year that the November project needs to have its fabric cut and serged, because there's a possibility that the November project could get bumped for something. So I don't necessarily cut and have it all ready to go at the beginning of the year. I like to have a fabric chosen and sitting in the bag. In some cases, sometimes there's 2 fabrics sitting in the bag, and I'm totally fine with that, saying, let's just wait till we get there. I don't generally tend to cut until I'm ready to start. Because if you change your mind and 27 other things come up, I may actually need, you know, if it's particularly a hand-dyed fabric, maybe I need that fabric for something else before, you know, if it gets bumped out of the schedule and gets put onto, it's optioned. It's no longer in the 5-year plan and it's sitting on the option. There's a decent chance maybe I'm going to need that hand-dyed fabric before the project I was originally going to use it for even shows back up in the plan. So I tend not to cut until I'm like really close to starting. You know, so even, you know, when I started my Just Nan Remember 911 piece, I did not cut that fabric until, like, I think I was starting it on I was starting it on a Sunday, right? About Thursday of just before that was when I went, okay, time to cut the fabric, right? So the fabric was sitting in, you know, the full fat quarter was sitting in the project bag. That's fine. But it did not get cut until I was like, okay, it's really going to get started. This is a go. This part of the plan is an actual firm go. Now I'm going to cut it. Now I'm going to serge it so it's ready to go. It's, you know, 28 count white antique white Jobelin. You know, that's not necessarily on the hard to get list, but I'm still not cutting things until I know that the project is a go. And there's, like, there are some fabrics, there's a series of things that I'm planning on doing in 2023 where I have the fabric for it. I am not cutting, I'm not cutting into it. I'm going to cut the January part, and then I'll see how January goes with that part of the plan, because the rest of it, the fabric may change depending on how January goes. Anyway, so that's, you know, so again, it's sort of like the decision's made, the decision's not made. You're waiting for something else. Like I know that there's one in there that says, like, you know, you need to finish getting your threads for this and making your color decisions because I'm changing some of the grains. You need to make your decisions, and once you get your threads, now you need to do the floss toss, right? But again, the goal before we hit December 31 is that it's going to say that the charts are all going to say in Dropbox. The January ones should say in Markup RXP. Threads are hopefully all going to say complete. Fabric, hopefully it's going to say in bag. Doesn't that sound exciting? Because that means I've made a choice, it's sitting in there, I've got the right count, the right color, the right size of fabric, it's sitting in the bag. Now, again, for some of them, it's like it's going to take a part of a fat quarter, but it means that the fat quarter is sitting in the project bag ready to go. And again, don't cut into it because you just never know when a plan's going to change. Then after that is where we get into additional tabs. So for example, I'm not going to get into all of the additional tabs, but one of the examples is, whoops, those are notes. One of the additional tabs is called 2020, it's called 2027 BBDGC. So if any of my family members were to ever look at the names of my tabs, they would have no idea what's going on. I'm pretty sure all of you know what's going on. That tab is for my Blackbird Designs Garden Club series. And the reason why there's a tab is because this, you know, there are a lot of threads that are called for on this. Let's do this. Right, so there's the called for threads. You know, online, certain online LNSs, they're really good about saying, here's the called for threads, here's, you know, whatever. Some of them are not, they just go, here's the chart, which is totally fine too. I've got these, so what I've done is I've now created a sheet in my workbook that has the Garden Club series. It has every chart, so the 12 charts are across the top, and then I put them in so that I can sort them and say, is this color used more than once? Is this color used, like some of them are used, you know, in a couple of charts. I think there's one color that's used in 3 of the charts. Now, individually, I think these are reasonably small charts. They're, what, 65 by 65? So I don't know that, like, even if it was used on 3 charts, you know, would I need more than one? Well, here's an example. If I knew when I'm looking at that list where I go, that's the house, plus on some other chart, it's used for, I'm making this up. You know, it's used for this big flower. It lets me sort of go, okay, that color is used in a couple of charts. Do I need 1 skein? Do I need 2 skeins? Do I need 3 skeins? What's going on here? It just lets me sort, because then when I'm, you know, when we get to 2027, I can look at this. It also, you know, again, in my concept of picking away at things where, you know, if I'm ordering something, I'm like, I'm going to be ordering some Weeks Dye Works, or I'm going to be ordering some Gast or Classic Colorworks. This is an example where I go, like, I can look ahead in my plan and go, maybe I'll, you know, I've got that order for what I need for this. Maybe I'm going to order a couple more because it's going to make a dent in this. Now, I haven't started to actually work on pulling the threads for this because I think there's a really good chance that I'm probably going to end up changing some of the colors in these. To make them a little more Judy-ish. But I come up with that master list, and then I can sort of start working on it and picking it off. So yes, I bought all of the remaining charts in all in one fell swoop. The threads I will pick off. And again, this is, so note to self for any of you that are, actually Denise, if you're watching, you could put a note in your 2027 in your 10-year planner and see if the Blackbird Designs Garden Club series stays as a 2027 project. Anyway, so that's what I use the other tabs for. Like, again, just create a tab where you go, like, usually it's for threads. I did that for the Cottage of the Month series, right? So I just came up, and, like, they all required some hand-dyed fibers, and they all used a variety of DMCs. So I just sat down with all of the charts, came up with 2 tabs. One had all of the DMCs, one had all of the overdyed cottons. And I came up with that master list. And then again, so you could see where things were being used multiple times. I, of course, have changed things over time as I stitched them. So one of my goals as we're coming up to the end of the year is, so I printed those out and I had them sitting in the bag for the year where they were all kitted up. And as I've been changing things, on that master list, I've crossed them out and said, here's what you actually used. Here's what you actually used. So now is the time when I get to the end of the year, one of my tasks will be to go back into those master lists and put in what I actually used, so I can save that just where and I'll pull them out of the planning folder, and I'll pull them into a different workbook that's going to get saved under Country Cottage Needleworks, and it's going to say, for me, it's going to say Master List for Cottage of the Month series. And it'll just in case in case anybody ever came back and said, man, I just saw your July cottage, which I made quite a few changes on. What did you use for the color of the house? It's like off the top of my head, I'm gonna, it's like, let me get back to you. But it will give me that flexibility. If somebody came back 5 years from now and said, what did you actually use for your July cottage house color? Hopefully I'll remember. If not, maybe some of you can remind me where I can go. I've got that master list where I actually wrote down, I've actually kept track of what I actually used in my pieces when I'm making the color changes. So that's how I'm using my Excel work. I'm looking at the time going, man, it's 2 hours. Welcome to the movies of Flosstube, brought to you by Judy, the City Stitcher. So that's how I'm using my workbook. I hope that helped. How you do planning is up to you. That's just what I'm currently doing. That's going to wrap it up. I had a moment going, so the previous 2 episodes, I was wearing dark colors for mourning for Queen Elizabeth's passing. So today, because she would not want anybody to be like Queen Victoria, who wore black for the rest of her life, mourning for Prince Albert, I decided I needed to wear something a little more of a color, so I'm wearing blue because it was her favorite color, but I'm also, unbeknownst to you, because I'm now, this is my Athena. In my kingdom of stitches that cross, I am queen of the needle and boss of the floss. It's blue, it has a crown on it, it has the word queen. This was the appropriate shirt for me to wear for today's Flosstube, even though you generally couldn't see the words on it. Athena of Goddess Stitching. You can buy her shirts through Facebook. I am uncertain as to whether or not you can buy them through her Instagram account. She does have an Instagram account. I will put both a link to the Facebook group and her Instagram account down below. I got this because she was bringing them to StitchCon. I ordered it. She graciously brought it to StitchCon to save me the international shipping. So Athena, thank you for that. I love my shirt. I'm wearing it. I'm wearing it proudly while I'm thinking queen things today. With that, thank you so much for hanging out for movie number 2. I hope you've had a good week. There are a lot of things going on in a lot of parts of the world. It doesn't necessarily, I know that not everybody's had a good week from a variety of factors, whether it's personal, family related, friend related, global related. Not everybody is going to have a good week every week, and that's okay too. To the extent you can, I hope you've had a good week. I hope you're staying safe. Safety first, safety first, safety first. I would, someone had made a comment to me, it's like going, I need to hurry up because I need to be there on time. And it was for something like, there are certain things like, yes, it's best to be there on time for an interview, but whatever, that requires different planning. But there are certain things like, I'm going to pick on attending a church service. It doesn't sound bad. If you show up to church 3 minutes late, 5 minutes late, honestly, arriving safely is more important than arriving on time. Safety first, safety first, safety first. I hope you are staying healthy. It's interesting, the rise of colds with all of our protection steps around COVID. It's been interesting that, now that many of us have gotten our vaccination shots and all that kind of stuff, when we're sort of relaxing a little bit more, some of our health and safety around hand sanitizing and masks and all that kind of stuff, we're easing up, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but the rise of the colds, and maybe our immune systems aren't quite as strong as they were 2 years ago because we were more regularly subjecting them to your everyday average bug. So that's been a little bit interesting. So stay healthy. Take whatever steps you need to do to be healthy. One of the ladies at the stitching group was wearing a mask the full time we were there. Totally fine. Totally fine. You need to do what is best for you. Now, it was a lovely group of stitchers, so of course nobody made any comments. It was, and I'm actually really glad that she was comfortable enough to say, I'm coming to stitching anyway. I'm wearing my mask so I can be safe and healthy. You know, I put priorities on those things. Safety first. Let's keep track of our health. And I hope that you're finding some time to do some stitching. And I hope you finding joy, mental breaks, whatever, stress relief as part of your stitching. 10 stitches, maybe you'll feel a little better. I've got a number of people where they sort of go like, it's like they're too tired, whatever, but if they just start that first 10 stitches, then they're surprised at how many stitches they get in once they get the first 10 in. With that, I'm wrapping it up. As always, I hope if you've got any questions, comments, thoughts, topics you'd like me to discuss, I'm thrilled to have the conversation in the comment section down below. To Carol and Shar, please send me your email addresses so I can get your prize winnings off to you. I have not booked the date for the next library get-together. I should have that done by next week, so you will get data on that next week. With that, take care, guys.